Hello, today I'm going to be talking about The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This book was originally published in 2012. Here's the book cover. To kind of go through a couple of key elements of what to expect when you're reading the book. Firstly, the writing style. I would describe it as pretty poetic, and it does use a first-person narrative. In terms of the plot and the pacing of the book, the plot is essentially it's the story of Achilles and his best friend and lover Patroclus, and it's the story of their relationship and their life together prior to the events that take place in Homer's The Iliad, which is an ancient Greek tragedy depicting the fall of Troy. In terms of the pacing, I would say it's like about a mid-tempo pace. It's not an action adventure story really. It's more of a character analysis. It really delves deeply into the psychology and the thoughts and emotions of the main character, the narrator in this case, which is Patroclus. Some of the other characters in the book are Achilles, who's known as the greatest warrior of the Greeks ever. And also Thetis, which is Achilles' mother, who's actually a sea nymph, which is technically like a lesser of the gods from the pantheon. In terms of the actual book itself, I found the story extremely riveting. The writing is so beautiful, and the characters are so well written and likable and human. They're also extremely flawed. Even the character depictions of the gods are so flawed. I saw an interview where Madeline Miller was saying that she wanted to kind of show that because in her understanding of the classics, in ancient times, the Greeks and the Romans were really scared of the gods. They were something to be feared because of their incredible power and the mystery of their emotion. They seem to be angry all the time. They seem to be constantly fighting, and humans were kind of just thrown in the middle and had to face the consequences of all of the gods' choices. The story itself was incredibly beautiful and sad. If you're familiar with the story of the fall of Troy and familiar with Achilles, our main characters die at the end of the story, which is something you probably know from Greek mythology, but it doesn't make the kind of pain of reading it any easier. In fact, it really intensifies it because Miller is such an incredible writer and is able to develop the characters so beautifully that I found myself extremely attached to the characters of Patroclus and also Achilles. And even though the characters don't always make good decisions, they don't always make smart decisions, and I didn't always agree with their choices, I always understood it because I thought Miller's writing was so well done. In the end, I think the story is really about relationships of all kinds. It's about the friendship between Achilles and Patroclus, which develops into a romantic and sexual relationship. It's about the relationships of parents and their children, the relationship of Achilles and his mother, what she wants for him versus what he ends up becoming, and her expectations that she places on him, as well as the expectations of Achilles' father and Patroclus's father and mother on him, which he mentions at the beginning of the story. Exploration of the friendship between Briseis and Patroclus. It's an exploration of war and violence and what seeking glory through violent means can cause. In the Odyssey, which is the story of Odysseus trying to return home after the Trojan War, he is able to commune with the dead, and he actually talks to Achilles, and Achilles says to him he wishes he had taken the simple life and not tried for glory in the way that he did, because there's a prediction told. Achilles was told that he could either become the greatest warrior of all time, or he could be nobody and live a long life. Achilles is so young, and I think a lot of people would have made the same choice that he made in the moment. As young people, we really want to make our mark on the world. And I think Achilles was willing to risk everything in order to achieve that. But then in the end, he decided it wasn't worth it. That all he really wanted was just his normal life, just to be alive and be able to live and experience things rather than the greatness that he was capable of. It's kind of a bittersweet idea. My emotional reaction to it was honestly really intense. This is probably the most reaction I've had to a book in a really long time. It might be one of my favorite books that I've ever read, and I look forward to reading it again with expectations of what happens, and maybe I can brace myself a little bit more emotionally. In terms of the general prose of the book, I think there are so many. The characters are so beautifully developed, the writing is so beautiful and fluent and easy to read. The story is really compelling, and even though this particular story is more of an exploration of characters and relationships, the overall story that's going on in the background of the Trojan War and Achilles' training and kind of this destiny of greatness that we see is coming is really super epic, and it's a really interesting kind of contrast again of the epicness of the story that's going around versus kind of the commonality of the relationships that are going on within the larger story. In terms of some of the cons, I think probably the only main con I can think of is the Greek names, because it is taking place in ancient Greece. So there are a lot of Greek names of countries within Greece at that time, or kingdoms within ancient Greece at that time. A lot of persons' names, city names, names of ships, and everything like that. Sometimes the names were a little bit hard, and I found myself trying to figure out how to really pronounce it in my head, which kind of made me have to take a step back and think for a second. But in the grander scheme of things, I think everything was so well done in the story that even the difficulty of trying to pronounce the names in my head didn't really detract from the overall story and message. In conclusion, I think I would definitely recommend this to absolutely everybody to read. This story, again, is just absolutely amazing. Madeline Miller is going to be, I think she's just going to be a huge force in the literary world in our future. So I wanted to kind of start my potential series out on a good note of a fantastic book that I thought everybody would really enjoy. If you have already read this, please let me know what you thought about it. If you didn't like the structure of this video, please leave a comment and let me know what you think I could do to improve upon it. Hope everyone enjoyed this little video and has a wonderful evening.